Have you ever kept the peace by abandoning yourself, nodding yes while your chest says no, just to be easy to love? This isn't about getting tougher, it's about getting truer. Have you ever imagined the moment when you'll finally silence that relentless inner critic, that voice whispering you're not capable, not worthy, not ready, the same voice that makes you shrink back, agree when you disagree, and abandon yourself to keep the peace? Perhaps you're exhausted from constantly checking in with others before making choices, from shaping yourself into whoever you think people need you to be, from maintaining this image of being agreeable and certain when inside you're questioning everything, when truthfully all you wanted was to trust your own voice just for one moment without that crushing weight of wondering if you're wrong, if you're too much, if you're enough at all. But here's something most people will never acknowledge. As long as you run from the pain of disappointing others, self-doubt will continue to dominate you. As long as you seek external permission to validate your worth, external reassurance to quiet your uncertainty, external proof that you're making the right choice, you will remain imprisoned by every opinion, every expectation, every moment of silence that makes you wonder if you've failed someone, if you've made the wrong choice, if you should have just kept quiet. And this isn't a character flaw. This is the wound most people carry. The only difference is that some have learned to numb it more skillfully than others. Carl Jung, one of the most penetrating minds in analytical psychology, understood that we are not defined by our doubts or our pain, but by what we choose to do with them. And this is where everything pivots. It's not about eliminating uncertainty or avoiding the discomfort of others' disapproval. It's not about becoming arrogant, rigid, or disconnected from meaningful feedback. It's about integration. It's about illuminating the hidden places where your self-trust has been eroded by wounds you've never addressed, bringing awareness to the unconscious patterns that make you question yourself, abandon yourself, betray yourself to avoid the pain of conflict or rejection. Because genuine self-confidence is not the absence of doubt or the avoidance of pain, but the complete acceptance of who you are, even when you don't have all the answers, even when standing in your truth means someone might be disappointed, even when you're bleeding from the cost of honoring yourself. If you're still here, it's not accidental. This message is for you, the one who's tired of betraying yourself with constant second-guessing and people-pleasing. It's for you who feel like everyone else possesses an inner certainty you were never given, as if others have access to a confidence and worthiness you can't reach, as if you're always at an emotional disadvantage, constantly apologizing for existing. I'm here to show you that this doesn't have to be your reality, but you'll need to confront some uncomfortable truths that may sting, truths about the pain you've been avoiding, truths about the wounds that fuel your doubt. And perhaps for the first time, this pain, this confrontation with what hurts, will set you free. Let's begin. Bafas, the wound, beneath the doubt. You believe that what makes you doubt yourself comes from outside, from the people who questioned your judgment, from the failures you've experienced, from the times you were told you weren't ready, from the moments your ideas were dismissed or your boundaries were met with anger. But here's the raw truth. None of these external events actually have the power to make you doubt yourself unless there's already an open wound inside you, a wound carved by pain you've never fully faced. What undermines your confidence is not what others say to you. It's the pain these experiences activate within you. It's the narrative you've constructed about your inadequacy to avoid feeling that pain again. It's the old wound of not feeling good enough, not feeling safe to be yourself. That was never healed. It's the void you cover up with overthinking, with people-pleasing, with that desperate need to appear, like you have everything figured out so no one sees how much you're hurting. Jung revealed that the doubt we experience in response to the external world is simply a reflection of what hasn't been integrated in our internal world, the pain we've buried, the rejections we've never mourned, the abandonments we pretend didn't devastate us. This explains why some people can face harsh criticism and remain centered, while others crumble at the slightest hint of disapproval, at the smallest sign someone might be upset with them. It's not about what happens, it's about where it hits you, where the wound still bleeds. And here's an uncomfortable realization. You still doubt yourself so intensely because on some level you're still trying to avoid the pain of being rejected, of being wrong, of being too much or not enough. You believe you can control how others should perceive you, that if you're just competent enough, agreeable enough, impressive enough, accommodating enough, selfless enough, then you'll finally be safe from the pain of disappointment, criticism, or abandonment. But this control is a fantasy, and as long as you grip it tightly, trying to manage everyone's reactions to avoid your own pain, you live in perpetual anxiety, trying to anticipate every reaction, trying to prevent the unavoidable hurt that comes with being human and taking up space. Do you want to stop doubting yourself? Then stop using self-doubt as a shield against pain. Stop abandoning yourself to avoid the discomfort of others' reactions. What you need isn't more external validation. It's the courage to face the pain that makes you need validation in the first place. As long as you believe that others need to affirm you for you to trust yourself, as long as you avoid the pain of standing alone in your truth, you will remain a hostage to their opinions. Your freedom emerges the moment you understand that external doubt only has power if it resonates with an existing wound, an unhealed pain within you. And this is precisely where the real battlefield exists, the unconscious repository of all the pain you've been running from. What you don't recognize, don't comprehend, and don't confront controls you. And this is what we'll explore next. Prepare to descend one level deeper, because that's where the wound lives, and that's where genuine transformation takes root. If this resonates with you, click the subscribe button and join this channel. Thank you for your support. Voila. The unconscious wound that feeds self-doubt. The greatest deception you've accepted is that you're in control of your self-perception. Wake up, because you're not. At least not while you continue operating on autopilot, doubting without understanding why, feeling inadequate without knowing where it originates, making commitments to yourself you later abandon to avoid disappointing someone else. Carl Jung made this unmistakably clear when he stated, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is precisely what's unfolding in your life right now. The self-doubt that paralyzes you, the imposter syndrome that surfaces without warning, the fear of judgment that stops you from speaking up, the compulsion to seek permission before trusting your own knowing. None of this is random. These are signals emanating from parts of yourself that have been wounded, abandoned, neglected, suppressed. These are the echoes of pain you've never fully felt, experiences you've never fully processed. Jung identified this hidden territory as the unconscious. And it's not merely a collection of forgotten memories, it's a dynamic force, an entire ecosystem of early wounds, internalized criticism, unmet needs, and fears you refuse to acknowledge, because acknowledging them means feeling the pain you've spent your whole life trying to avoid. But they continue to dictate what you believe about yourself and how you navigate the world. You wonder why certain criticisms devastate you while others bounce off unaffected people. Because those criticisms strike at wounds within you that remain raw, unhealed. The wound of never being chosen, the wound of being told you're too sensitive, the wound of being punished for having needs. And if they're raw, it's because you've never addressed them. You've simply buried them beneath psychological denial, beneath busyness, beneath the performance of confidence, and now you keep stumbling over them. Jung stated, "We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." And what have you been doing? Condemning yourself for doubting, for needing reassurance, for not being stronger. suppressing your needs to avoid the pain of potential rejection, silencing your authentic voice to escape the discomfort of conflict, as if that would resolve anything, as if avoiding pain would make you whole. The truth is that the unconscious doesn't vanish just because you ignore it. The wound doesn't heal just because you pretend it doesn't exist. It only finds more insidious ways to surface, in relationships where you lose yourself to avoid abandonment, in patterns of self-sabotage you can't break, in anxiety that emerges precisely when things should feel safe, in the chronic self-doubt that whispers you can't trust yourself because every time you did, someone made you pay for it. This isn't misfortune. It's your unconscious attempting to awaken you. It's the wound trying to get your attention, begging to be seen, to be felt, to finally be healed. But you insist on remaining asleep, on avoiding the pain. Do you want to be someone who no longer doubts themselves? Then stop fleeing from the pain inside you, from the wounds that fuel the doubt. Because as long as you don't know you're unconscious, as long as you don't face the hurt you've been running from, you will be a puppet of your insecurities, forever seeking external validation to soothe internal wounds. And the more you try to protect yourself from external judgment, the more vulnerable you become to internal self-betrayal and self-abandonment. But there is an exit, and it's not found in defending yourself or perfecting yourself. It's found in facing yourself, in feeling the pain you've avoided, in integrating what's been fragmented. Because becoming unshakably self-trusting is not an act of defiance, it's an act of profound courage, the courage to feel what hurts and know yourself anyway. This is what we'll examine next. What it truly means to trust yourself unconditionally, and why this strength doesn't come from certainty or invulnerability, but from accepting both your doubt and the pain beneath it. Let's continue. Tava, the integration of self-trust through pain. Most people believe the only way to avoid self-doubt is by building an identity fortress, by never appearing uncertain, by never showing vulnerability. They construct facades, develop defensive personas, cultivate an appearance of absolute confidence, and declare, "I don't care what anyone thinks," or "I'm always sure of myself," or "doubt doesn't touch me." But inside they're still questioning. They're still hurting. They're still fragmenting under the weight of unprocessed pain, because the problem was never about having doubts. The problem is not understanding where your doubts originate, not recognizing that they're symptoms of deeper wounds, pain points you've never allowed yourself to fully feel, and this only afflicts those who haven't yet encountered the wounded parts of themselves, who are still running from the pain that fuels their uncertainty. Jung was precise when he wrote, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul. And that human soul you insist on hiding behind a certain, decisive, unquestionable persona. It's carrying wounds that are desperate to be witnessed, pain that needs to be felt, not bypassed. Becoming self-trusting has nothing to do with eliminating all doubt or becoming immune to pain. It has nothing to do with rejecting feedback, avoiding uncertainty, or pretending you have all the answers. It has to do with integration, with acceptance, with bringing into consciousness everything you've buried in shadow, especially the pain, the hurt, the rejection you pretended didn't break something inside you. You don't become unshakable in self-trust by creating separation between yourself and your uncertainty. You become unshakable when you realize that no external opinion can destabilize what has already been embraced within you, including the pain, including the wounds, including all the ways you've been hurt and all the ways you've hurt yourself in response. When you integrate your shadows, your fears, your perceived inadequacies, your vulnerabilities, your unhealed wounds, your need for connection that you've been taught to hide, you stop reacting to every criticism as if it's reopening a wound. Because you've already opened it yourself, you've already looked at it, felt it, and chosen to heal it. You observe, You discern. You choose. You're no longer an emotional puppet dancing to avoid pain. And that is genuine freedom. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you authentically are, not what others expected you to be to avoid hurting them or being hurt by them, not what you thought you should become to earn acceptance and avoid rejection, but what emerges from within, from the meeting of consciousness and shadow, ego and soul, pain and healing. Individuation is not a process toward perfection, Jung taught, but toward wholeness. You don't need to become a better version of yourself. You don't need to eliminate your doubt or your capacity to be hurt. You simply need to become complete, to integrate all of it, the certainty and the uncertainty, the strength and the vulnerability, the healer and the wounded. And here's the revelation that nobody offered you. The more you run from self-doubt, the more it pursues you, because you're really running from the pain beneath it. The more you try to appear certain to avoid the hurt of being wrong or rejected, the more brittle you become. But when you face your own uncertainty, when you face the pain that created it, when you accept who you are with all that is brilliant and flawed, powerful and tender, wounded and healing, nothing outside has the capacity to unravel you, because you've already been unraveled. You've already touched the hurt, and you've discovered that you can survive it, that you can hold it, that it doesn't have to control you. However, this path demands courage. Courage to look inward. Courage to feel the pain you've been avoiding. Courage to release the protective personas that keep you safe but small. Courage to feel uncertain, to feel hurt without abandoning yourself. Because it's precisely in doubt, in pain, in the willingness to feel both, that the gateway to your true strength is concealed. And that's what we'll discover next. How uncertainty and pain, far from being your enemies, can become the doorway to your authentic, integrated self. Let's dive deeper, and this time without resistance, without the desperate need to avoid what hurts. Daulam, the sacred function of doubt and pain. You learned to fear uncertainty and pain from childhood. You were taught that doubt is a sign of weakness, that hesitation is failure, that questioning yourself makes you vulnerable, that showing pain makes you a burden, and so you began to avoid it all, to suppress it, to deny it, to perform certainty even when you felt lost. But the more you flee from doubt and the pain beneath it, the more it haunts you. And worse, it transforms into anxiety, perfectionism, analysis paralysis, chronic people-pleasing behaviors that you don't even understand the source of. Relationships where you disappear to avoid conflict, moments where you abandon your truth to avoid the pain of disappointing someone. Suppressed doubt doesn't disappear. It just creates underground tunnels within you. Unprocessed pain doesn't heal, it just festers. Until one day, without warning, your entire sense of self collapses under the weight of everything you've been carrying in silence. Jung understood doubt and pain in a completely different framework. He recognized that uncertainty was the soul's messenger, the unconscious mind's alarm system, and that pain was the language the self, what you are in your totality, uses to capture your attention, to tell you something vital needs to change. He wrote, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life." But you don't accept. You judge yourself for doubting, for hurting, for not being stronger. You distract yourself. You stay perpetually busy serving others to avoid serving yourself. You numb yourself. You perform confidence. You do everything possible to avoid examining what truly matters. What is this self-doubt attempting to reveal to you? What pain have you been running from? What wound needs your attention? The truth is that doubt only torments you so profoundly because you're still at war with yourself, still trying to avoid the pain of being fully seen, fully known, fully yourself. There's still a part of you yearning to express your authentic voice, and another part terrified of the pain that might follow, the rejection, the disappointment in others' eyes, the loneliness of standing alone. There's something within you calling for autonomous selfhood, but your conditioned mind, accustomed to external validation and terrified of pain, tries to suffocate that call. And it's in this internal conflict, this war between who you are and who you think you need to be to avoid suffering, that self-doubt is born. Because transformation is uncomfortable, self-discovery is painful, releasing old identities built on pleasing others, severing relationships built on false selves and fear, allowing what no longer serves you to fall away, even when it hurts, even when it disappoints people, even when you have to grieve. All of this is a mourning process, an internal death and rebirth, but it's precisely in this space of dissolution, in this willingness to feel the pain, that something authentic can emerge. Because when everything in you is deconstructed, when false certainties crumble, when doubt and pain strip away your protective layers, you can finally see who you genuinely are, without the performance, without the adaptation, without the mask you wear to avoid being hurt. And at that exact point, both doubt and pain become sacred, because they bring you to your knees before the only thing that can set you free, your own truth, held gently in hands that have finally stopped trying to control everything to avoid suffering. Jung knew this. He understood that doubt is not a malfunction of consciousness, and pain is not a punishment. They're both part of the maturation process, the soul's way of getting your attention. Uncertainty is not the end of your development. It's the beginning of the journey toward individuation. Pain is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It's evidence that something needs to be integrated, felt, honored, released. The problem is that most people retreat before crossing through that uncomfortable valley. They flee from the doubt. They numb the pain. They distract themselves. They return to the surface comfort of external validation, to the temporary relief of abandoning themselves one more time. But not you. If you've stayed with me this far, if you felt the sting of recognition in these words, it's because you're ready to cross, ready to feel, ready to stop running. And in the next section, we'll understand how this crossing happens, how the path of individuation, no matter how solitary and difficult it may appear, no matter how much it asks you to feel, is what ultimately sets you free from the tyranny of both doubt and the fear of pain. Let's continue. We're going even deeper now. The lonely path of becoming whole. Very few people possess the courage to begin the journey of individuation, and even fewer possess the courage to complete it, because this path doesn't promise comfort. It doesn't offer guarantees that you won't be hurt again. It doesn't protect your carefully constructed identity or shield you from the pain of transformation. It dismantles everything. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming who you are, but this means, above all, unlearning what you think you are, feeling the pain of shedding identities that no longer fit, mourning the person you thought you had to be. And that wounds more deeply than any external rejection, because you begin to recognize that much of what has defined you until now was constructed from fear, not authenticity, built to avoid pain, not to express truth. You are not your accomplishments that you accumulated to prove your worth. You are not your traumas that you've let define your limitations. You are not the identity you assembled to be valued, to be chosen, to avoid being abandoned or criticized. All of this was what you created to survive emotionally, to protect yourself from the pain of being fully seen and potentially rejected. But survival is not authentic living. Protection is not connection. Avoiding pain is not the same as healing. And individuation is life's invitation beyond mere survival and self-protection. It's when the unconscious begins to push everything that's been suppressed, all the pain, all the truth, all the authentic needs you've denied, toward the surface, demanding to be felt and integrated. Individuation requires the dissolution of the persona, Jung wrote, for it is merely a mask of collective adaptation, a shield against the pain of not belonging. In other words, you will need to shed your protective skin to discover what exists beneath. You will need to feel the vulnerability, the exposure, the discomfort of being seen without your defenses. It's in this process that you begin to become truly unshakable in self-trust. Not because doubt no longer visits you or pain no longer touches you, but because you've already walked through the fire of both. You've faced your internal critics that whispered you weren't enough. You've looked into the eyes of your shame, your neediness, your fear of rejection, your grief over all the times you abandoned yourself and said, "I see you, I feel you, and you no longer control me." It's this internal clarity, this lucidity in the face of your own shadows and wounds, this willingness to feel everything without collapsing, that grants you a strength that doesn't depend on approval, recognition, or control. You no longer need everyone to validate your choices because you've validated your own pain, your own journey, your own truth. You no longer need to win every debate because you're no longer debating your own worthiness. You no longer need to appear certain because you know who you are beneath the certainty and the doubt, and no one can take that away from you. True self-trust is not a shield that protects you from pain. It's a foundation built from having survived it, from having felt it and not been destroyed. It's the integration of all your parts, the confident and the uncertain, the strong and the vulnerable, into a center of consciousness that remains steady amid chaos. You may experience doubt, but it doesn't paralyze you. You may feel pain, but it doesn't make you doubt your worth. You may feel uncertain, but you don't abandon yourself, because you've stopped being reactive to every uncomfortable feeling and have become whole. You've stopped living on the surface where every wave knocks you over and have begun to inhabit the depths where storms pass overhead but don't uproot you. However, this depth comes at a cost: solitude. Not because you will be abandoned, but because few people can accompany you on this journey into feeling, into truth, into the willingness to be hurt and still choose authenticity. Most remain trapped on the surface, in personas, in the desperate avoidance of pain and uncertainty. And when you begin to liberate yourself from that prison, when you begin to trust yourself even when it disappoints others, when you begin to honor your truth even when it causes discomfort, you inevitably create distance from those still living in fear. But this distancing is not arrogance, it's evolution. It's not cruelty, it's self-preservation of a different kind, the kind that preserves your soul rather than your image. You don't separate out of superiority. You separate because you no longer fit where you once hid yourself, where you once made yourself small to avoid the pain of taking up too much space. And this brings us to the final point of this journey. Consciousness as the foundation of unshakable self-trust. Consciousness as the embrace of both doubt and certainty, pain and healing. Because it's not external confidence that protects you, it's internal clarity, born from feeling everything and integrating it all. This is what we'll address in the final section. Consciousness as the only state in which nothing, absolutely nothing, has more power over your sense of self than you do, because you finally stopped abandoning yourself to avoid pain. Let's complete this crossing together. We're almost there. The consciousness that liberates from doubt and pain. Now that you've journeyed this far, there's something that must be stated with absolute clarity. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will protect you from self-doubt if you remain unconscious of the wounds within you, if you continue running from the pain that fuels your uncertainty. The criticisms will continue to destabilize you. The rejections will continue to make you question your worth. The failures will keep confirming your worst fears. The fear of disappointing others will keep you trapped in self-abandonment until you awaken. And awakening is not a mystical event. It's a daily choice to feel rather than flee, It's looking within even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts. It's taking complete responsibility for your own healing, without blaming others, the past, or circumstances for the pain you carry. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." You have spent your entire life resisting the fear of inadequacy, the terror of being seen as incapable or too much, the pain of not belonging, the anguish of not being chosen, the grief of all the times you chose others over yourself. But what did you do with all of that pain? You hid it. You silenced it. You tried to control every perception to avoid feeling it again. You tried to be perfect so no one could hurt you. You tried to be certain so you'd never have to face the vulnerability of being wrong. And all of this has brought you here, exhausted, weary of fighting against the world and against yourself, tired of the constant doubt, drained from the endless people-pleasing. But now you understand. True self-trust is not rigidity or invulnerability. It's clarity born from feeling your pain and knowing yourself anyway. It's not about constructing defenses against hurt. It's about expanding your capacity to feel, to heal, to integrate. Because when you understand your triggers, your patterns, your wounds, when you've actually felt them instead of running from them, the opinions of others lose the power to destabilize you. You still hear feedback, but you don't drown in it. You still feel pain when you're hurt, but it doesn't make you doubt your entire existence. You still experience uncertainty, but you don't abandon yourself because of it. And that transforms everything. What protects you from chronic self-doubt is not shielding yourself from pain. It's diving into it completely, feeling it, understanding it, integrating it, and emerging with the knowledge that you survived, that you can hold your own pain without fragmenting. Those who live on the surface, avoiding every uncomfortable feeling, get knocked over by every wave of criticism, every hint of rejection. Those who dive deep, who have felt their pain and integrated their wounds, discover that there is stillness, stability, and unshakable self-knowledge in the depths. And that is where you are now. When you begin to live from that place of integration, from that willingness to feel rather than flee, the world may attempt to shake you, but it no longer finds the wound to exploit. The doubts may arise, but they no longer define you because you understand where they come from. The pain may visit, but it no longer controls you because you've learned to hold it with compassion. This is the consciousness Jung spoke of, not consciousness as mere awareness, but consciousness as integrated wholeness, as the courage to feel everything and be destroyed by nothing. This is individuation's deepest promise. Not that you'll never doubt yourself or hurt again, but that when doubt appears, you'll meet it with understanding rather than fear. When pain comes, you'll feel it without letting it dictate your worth. And this changes everything about how you move through the world, how you trust yourself, how you honor your truth even when it's uncomfortable. If this message has awakened something within you, if you feel the stirring of your own wounded self finally being seen, finally being allowed to heal, write in the comments below, "I choose to feel and heal." Let's create a community of people who are done abandoning themselves to avoid pain, who are ready to trust their own truth, who understand that real confidence comes not from never doubting or hurting, but from knowing who you are beneath both the doubt and the pain. And don't stop here. The journey continues. Your healing continues. The next video is waiting, offering another piece of this transformation. Because real change doesn't happen in one moment of insight. It happens in the accumulated courage to feel, to return to yourself, to choose your truth again and again, until that choice becomes who you are. See you there.